G'day guys, Rick here from Perth Bullion Exchange, perthbullion.com.au, and today we wanted to talk a little bit about storage and some of the options out there and some of the pros and cons of those. So in my mind there's probably three main things you consider when you're looking at storage, or three main options I should say. So you've probably got store at home, however that might be, and we'll go over some of the different ways you might like to store your precious metals at home. Storing with a bullion dealer such as ourselves, and storing in a bank or a safety deposit box. So we'll start with the at-home storage because that's probably what most people are looking for. Now, advantage is obviously it doesn't cost you anything outside of obviously if you wanted to go down the route of a safe or something like that. Now, when you're storing at home, there's a few things to consider, such as how you store your metals. So security is one thing. So in my mind, I'll often recommend people not to look at a safe, because a safe is like a homing beacon for people who are looking for valuables to steal if you ever are unfortunate enough to be broken into. And unless you're going for a well-regarded safe company with a rating and things like that on the safe, which can get very expensive depending on how much metals you've got to store, it probably at best slow the burglar down, and they probably make it easier for them to find the metals in the first place. So as with most things, I know everyone's probably heard from plenty of dealers and such on the topic, anonymity, if I can say that right, is your best defense against burglary. So obviously make sure that no one knows that you've got precious metals in the house in the first place. And then I think once you go away from safe storage, which is my lowest recommendation, not that I'm here to give advice by any means, but me personally, I would feel least comfortable putting my precious metals in a safe. The next option is obviously to hide them in plain sight. So, if you think logically, there's certain places where burglars are going to look for precious metals and valuables, and hiding them in like plain sight can often be a good way to go, whether that be a box in the bottom of your pantry or something along those lines. It's a good option, especially if you want to have, which is one of the advantages of storing precious metals at home, is that you've got easy access to them. You can get them whenever you need them within 10 minutes notice. People often talk about go bags and things like that, and so having them in your home does allow you to have that easy accessibility to them if you had to get and go in a hurry. So that's probably the big advantage. So often people would like to store a small amount at home, which is probably what I'd suggest might be a good idea. But when you are storing them, there's a few things to consider outside of security. Obviously you want to make sure, especially if you're storing stuff, which most people are, that is somewhat collectible, like you want to keep it in good condition. So I've got a couple of bits here to show you. So these are just a cheap silica gel pack. Now you can buy these on eBay, or a packaging store, anywhere like that. We put these through our storage facilities on a probably a quarterly basis. I think we just changed out our first lot, so we'll throw maybe 10 kilos of these around. They are cheap, they're not expensive, so if you are going to store them at home, I would recommend, for the cost of a few of these, you can probably get a bag of them for $10 or something like that. And obviously then storing them, now this obviously goes against what I've just said, but the monster boxes you can get for your bullion and stuff are good hard plastic cases if you wanted to store them in one of those. Obviously, if somebody knows what they're looking for and they've got stickers all over them, it might draw a bit of attention, so you might go down a different route. But obviously having them in a sturdy case, if you can air seal it, even better. And I would strongly recommend, for the cost of a few silica gel packs, just to sort of keep your silver, especially from tarnishing and things like that. The other big option for storing metals at home is a bit of midnight gardening, as I'm sure a few people watching this have done or have considered doing. I actually feel like when storing metals at home, it probably is, on an overall basis, the safest way to go about it. And with that, what we said earlier around making sure people don't know it's there, that goes along with if you get a safe installed, there's safe installers that know it's there, there's delivery drivers that know it's there, things like that. All the reasons why people like to keep their metals purchases anonymous, paying in cash and things like that. You don't want to go then telling 10 people that you've got it. So a bit of midnight gardening means that essentially you can keep it between you and probably just your significant other. You need one person to know if you get hit by the proverbial bus. Someone needs to know how to locate the metals, because there's no point storing this wealth in precious metals that you've built up over your lifetime, most likely for your children, if they can't find it when you're gone. And you never know when you're going to go, so make sure at least one person knows how to locate your metals. I've heard some interesting stories about people giving their kids the coordinates or codes to a lock and they get part of the code each, so whatever takes your fancy, but as long as somebody knows where it is in the event of something unfortunate happening to yourself. Now, the other option is safety deposit boxes with banks. Obviously, the final sort of piece of that puzzle is cost. So while storing at home, depending on your storage choice, whether it's a safe or otherwise, it could be anywhere from zero ongoing and zero upfront as well if you're burying in the backyard in a piece of PVC pipe. And then when you look at safety deposit boxes, I think from what I've researched, it's about $150 starting point for even a small one, and then it obviously increases from there. And then with a bullion dealer, it's normally a percentage of the precious metals content, so it's a pretty high starting point for the safety deposit box, unless you've got like a high volume of metals. And then, you know, unless that's gold, the size of your deposit box is going to increase and therefore the price. So it's probably, you know, a very close comparison between a safety deposit box and a bullion dealer, whereas the home option obviously could be as low as zero up front, and it is obviously zero ongoing to store those metals. So with a bullion dealer, they're insured. If you had to get insurance at home, that would obviously, likewise with a safety deposit box, in most cases that you can insure your contents in there as well. Home insurance is difficult, so to get your precious metals listed on your home insurance, home and contents insurance policy, you would have to list out those items that have to be audited and things like that to ensure that they're there and the value and the condition and things like that, which from my understanding is a very difficult thing to do. Not that I've done it myself, but I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who can attest to how difficult insurance companies are to deal with. So it's probably just the final thing to consider there between those few options as far as price goes. The problem with bank safety deposit boxes is access. So where you can access your metals in a hurry if you've got them stored at home. Obviously, if you're going to a bank, it's opening hours, it's, you know, all those things to be able to actually get access to your metals, and then transporting it to and from there. So if you ever did want to say, you know, if you had $10,000 worth of precious metals and you wanted to take them away from the bank, to take them home for whatever reason that might be, or to take them to a bullion dealer to exchange them for funds, you've got to walk out of that building with that money and walk into another building with that money. So there's a bit of a risk there from transport point of view. And then the third one, storing with a bullion dealer, often obviously bullion dealers know how to handle the metals as well. So, and you'd be well within your rights, I think, if you're storing with a bullion dealer, to ask a few questions about the space that your metals are going to be stored in. We run a dehumidifier in our storage area 24 hours a day to keep the moisture content in the air below, sits at around 35 to 30, as well as what we mentioned before, we have silica gel throughout the storage area to keep just the environment as optimum as possible to stop tarnishing and things like that. But I think if you're storing with a bullion dealer, I think you're well within your rights to ask those sorts of questions, because the condition of your products are the ones in question. There is the age-old saying of if you don't hold it, you don't own it, and obviously that's the case, and it has happened in the past with bullion dealers where there's been a financial problem with the bullion dealer administration, for instance, and people have had a lot of trouble getting a hold of their stored precious metals. I'm not trying to talk anyone out of it, it's a part of our business, but you need to be aware of the risks, and there is that risk. It is the you don't hold it, you don't own it to some extent. Now, most bullion dealers have you listed as, like, those assets are listed against your name, as we do. However, it's my understanding that a bullion dealer in Australia that did go broke, and some of you might know who I was talking about, had that in place, and still the administrator that was coming to run that business post the credit event for that bullion dealer charged some very exorbitant fees for people to get their safety deposit boxes. They ran a safety deposit system as well, and their stored precious metals back from that bullion dealer. So there's always that risk. I mean, it's up to you whether you weigh that up. The risk of having the metals in your home, obviously, you know, whether or not they can find them or not is one thing, but if they know you have them, you or your loved ones can obviously be threatened to give them the precious metals, whereas obviously in a bullion dealer, you don't have that problem. There's also an accessibility that is a benefit if you've got them stored with a bullion dealer. Obviously, if you're hoping to sell them, they're already there with the bullion dealer. You don't have to go in there. You can have the money deposited straight in your account. But then likewise with the bank and the safety deposit box scenario, is going to depend on business hours. So you can't necessarily grab them and go. If it's a Sunday, you've got to wait until Monday morning until they open to be able to access them. Being able to sell them in the one spot though where you've got them stored does benefit a little bit, because you don't run the additional risk of transport, so you don't have to move them from one place to the other to make that sale. You can obviously just ring up the bullion dealer, get your sale price, and have the funds deposited in your account with no sort of risk of moving things around. I tried to make a few notes on this one to make sure we hit off on everything, because it is a bit complicated. But if there is any other questions, please feel free to drop one below and we'll try our best to get back to you. Otherwise, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. We are going to be bringing out more and more of these videos. So we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all next time.